Welcome to the Be That Healing Girl podcast. And today on this episode, we're going to talk about why you keep over explaining and still feel misunderstood. So, this is definitely the episode if you tend to just word vomit all the things onto your partner, or maybe it's the version of they ask you a question and you just have so many unnecessary unneeded details. They just want a yes or a no. And usually they'll be really confused like, is it a yes or a no? Or you have trouble being really concise or succinct with your partner, meaning you are just kind of sending out a whole paragraph. Maybe you are actually sending out multiple paragraphs in your texts instead of just having a sentence. So if all or any of those things are you, then this is the episode for sure to save it, send it, download it. And in the Healing Girl Gang this month, which is my membership and community, we are so laser focused on the topic of communication. It's one of my favorite topics, and we're diving deep into that in our Healing Girl Gang. And in the Healing Girl Gang, it's all about the education. There are in-depth trainings, implementation days, so you don't just have the information, and an action plan. So all of that link is below. But if you're new here, my name is Claire. Hello. I'm a relationship coach, and I specifically love helping high achieving, high performing girlies that are slaying in your career. Maybe you're climbing the corporate ladder, director level. You've got 15 million in book of business, or you're a huge project manager, or maybe you have a successful business or multiple businesses. You have investments, or you have one big one that's just raking in the dough, or maybe your success looks like you have letters behind your name. My academics out there, my nerds who have maybe a PhD or some kind of MD behind your name. And while all of that in the outside world is so powerful, you might feel powerless by how much you overthink. You're spiraling when they don't text back. Maybe you are needing that constant reassurance, which can feel so like an oxymoron because you don't want that or need that, but at the same time you do. I get that. So if that is you and all of that and more, then you're in the right place. Okay. So I'm so honored to give you some wisdom. And if you are enjoying this episode or any other episode, hitting the 5 stars, or even if you're on Apple, leaving a review, a written review, means so much. The algorithm gods and goddesses love that. And I appreciate you just sending me the high five in the form of a 5-star. Thanks for doing that. So let's dive in. And something that made me really think about this so hardcore, which is I went to my first yoga class in over 3 years. What? I can't even believe I'm saying that out loud. But, and when I say in studio is the yoga class. I take yoga all the time on a regular basis, almost every day here at home. But when I started noticing that maybe I need a little accountability, maybe I should not have my phone so close by. I said, okay, the best way to do that is just to go to class and be on a schedule. So I went to the local class right down the street, and it was such an interesting experience. And if you didn't know, I have a huge background in yoga. I have my 500-hour yoga teacher certification, which is basically the highest that you can go. You can keep getting education. It's just like the biggest certification that you can get. I have been teaching since, 2009. I don't teach anymore in that way, but I also have been a Lululemon ambassador, which is those cool pants, the Aligns, if you like butter. And so I have a big background in yoga, and it was such an interesting thing for me to go back to class because lo and behold, I get into class and I practice at home. It's just me and my computer screen taking yoga online. And in front of a mirror is a different game. All right. And I've known this, but man, after not being in front of a yoga studio mirror in 3 years, all of the same stuff, the same kind of mental chatter, the monkey mind, chittavriti is what it's called in the yoga tradition, was kind of coming back up. And I was looking at the mirror and I was justifying my body and just really having an interesting time. And what I say justifying, I am currently in gain mode. I've been in gain mode. I've been healing my gut for the past few years. And when in that process, what I was learning is that I actually wasn't absorbing the nutrients that I needed. And so I was in this weird spot where I was gaining weight and I was eating healthy. So in this process, I have been very conscious of not only healing my butt and my gut, but really wanting to gain more muscle. Again, I have been a long time in fitness. I used to power lift many, many years ago. I've just done it all. And I wanted to get some more muscle because when you can't absorb the nutrients, you can't gain muscle. And gaining muscle is so important in your overall health, protecting your bones, and also it helps you lose weight. So when I was looking at my body in the yoga studio, it was so interesting because I was looking at my body, and I'm a little fluffier than in this gain phase, which I'm so excited about. And also, it's something that's just different. And in this yoga class, I was just noticing how I was talking about my body. And this has taken many different forms with my relationship with yoga in itself, where before, when I was in really tip top shape, and I'm in tip top shape now, it just looks different. But even when I was in what would you consider a just smaller size, then I would still pick apart my poses. I would still talk to my body and communicate with my body in not a great way. And so it was such a powerful reminder in this yoga class to use all of my tools. And it was so powerful to notice that chatter, to be observant of my thoughts, and to give myself permission to be in my body now, in the body that I have now, and fill myself with gratitude and really pay attention and choose differently how I communicate with my body. And just like you are in relationship with your body and how you're talking to your body, how you talk to your body, how I was talking to my body, it shows up in your relationship. And I can also tell you that the way that I would talk about my body, the way that I would perceive it, the way I would communicate in my own mind around my body, I could look at my relationships in that time frame and say absolutely the communication within myself, the communication in my relationship was pretty much the same. So I just wanted to share that on a personal level because it really is so true. How you talk to yourself is going to show up how you talk in relationship. And so let's dive into the piece and the part where why you're over explaining. Okay, what is the reasons why you're over explaining? And there's really, for me, in my mind, there's three of them that come up right away. And so the first one is we over explain because we don't want to fight, right? So if you tend to be conflict avoidant, if you tend to, I just want to keep it nice and say nice things and I want it to be nice, then we are avoiding a fight. And I also, when I go over these three pieces, I want to go over the reframes that I think are really powerful. So we over explain because we don't want to fight. Okay. And if you are not used to conflict, or you've never seen conflict, or you've never learned how to handle conflict or communicate through conflict, no wonder you're over explaining because you don't really want to fight. That just feels really scary, really threatening. And so we avoid it. We over explain because if we can just avoid the fight, then nothing bad can happen is the mindset. And let me tell you, that's not how it rolls. But so we over explain because we don't want to fight. Another reason that we over explain is because we don't want them to get distant. So this also tends to happen, obviously, if you're anxiously attached and maybe they're a little avoidant. Oh, if they get distant and what I say they're not going to like, or they're going to get defensive, or whatever the reason, excuse is, then we want to avoid that distance. That space can feel really scary, and it can kind of, in our mind, unconsciously, we don't want to have that distance. So if I can just make sure that I'm explaining to a T, that's going to stop them from being distant. You still tracking with me? I'm feeling like this is probably hitting home. Now, the last, and if not arguably the most important reason why we over explain is because we are just so freaking afraid of rejection. All right. This is the big one. And so if we are afraid of rejection, that's a big deal. Okay. We are also probably afraid of abandonment. So rejection can feel like abandonment, abandonment can feel like rejection. And when we operate in our relationships or in life out of fear of rejection, I want you to just feel and take a moment to see how unrealistic that is. That we are going to experience rejection somehow, somewhere, in some place. Now, and if you are a high performer and you're a high achiever, gosh, that feels totally just not okay because you know and have gotten so far and so long by achieving, right? And arguably, I would say that the most successful people have faced a lot of rejection, and some people, like myself in the past, would be really sensitive to rejection. Oh, and I'll be quite honest, like sometimes even in my comments, I have to just kind of like turn my brain off. I don't get notifications at all on any of those platforms, Instagram, TikTok, none of them. I barely get text messages because I'm so protective of my peace. But when I'll just use that for an example, if I see a comment that is a little sketchy or combative, it is really prone. We get really prone to, ooh, I don't like that. I have to protect myself. And it all really boils down to the fear of rejection. Okay. So we avoid fighting, we avoid distance, and we over explain because ultimately at the end of the day, we don't want to be rejected. Now, here is some of the reframes and why we want to look at rejection in a different way, which is especially in a relationship when we are not seeing eye to eye, that's not a bad thing. That is a good thing. Why? Because contrast is so important. We want sweet and we want salty. We want, I was watching Dear Megan, which is on Netflix, Megan Queen, not Queen, Duchess of Sussex, and she high low fashion, right? And even if for me like loose jeans, tight top, like contrast is great. And so in food, in fashion, and it's also important in our relationship. So when we are trying to avoid fights or something like that, or we're trying to avoid friction, when we are not seeing eye to eye, it's actually what makes a relationship stronger. Contrast is so important. So, for example, I am a fire sign. Craig is a earth sign. Hello, that is major, major contrast. And it's also what I love about our relationship. I think Craig is he is the funniest person in my world. He makes me laugh all the time. And also, his sense of humor is very, very dry. It's very like one-linery. It's very dark and sarcastic. And I am just tickled by that. It's so freaking funny. And I'm just thinking about this morning, Murdoch. So in the morning, we have a morning walk. This is just an example of his humor. We were on our morning walk and there's a park right across the street. So our little thing to do is to go to the end of the sidewalk and wait until we can cross the street. It's kind of a busy intersection. So this morning we're walking towards the corner where we typically wait, and Murdoch decides to take the biggest dump. I mean, this poop was humongous in this neighbor's yard. And I can't even remember exactly what Craig said, but he said something like, "Take that." And it just was so funny and so dark and so just hilarious. And I am not that. I mean, I giggle at everything. I'm just a giggler, giggler, giggler. I love a good laugh. And I just love the contrast of our humor and what makes us laugh. So, just like a little side story on contrast, why it's important. I don't even think that's exactly what he said, but it was super dark and funny and twisted, and I thought it was hilarious. Anyway, if you get it, you get it. If you know, you know. Okay, so the next piece with this fear of rejection and why we over-explain is this over-explaining is we try to just coat the whole ice cream. We just want to coat it with fudge. Maybe I'm hungry. I don't know. But we want to just cover all the bases. And if you think about it and feel into it, this this whole part around over explaining, this just dousing the situation with reasons, it is a cling and a smother. Like, I'm just gonna deluge this sentiment with lots of stuff. And the reality is, when we're smothering or we're trying to cover or we're trying to cover all the bases, that is what stops growth. It's springtime here in Denver. And it is so interesting that when you look at gardens, and I'm not a gardener, I have got a bit of a black thumb, if you want to call it that. But what I've learned from my mom, who's a green thumb, is that you actually want space in your garden. Space is what's necessary for things to grow in a healthy way. You don't just throw a bunch of seeds in like 1 square inch. You have to allow space for your garden to grow. Okay. So we think that we're doing something, but really we're smothering. And then the last piece is, in this fear of rejection, we are self abandoning, right? So, in this attempt to not be rejected in that outward action, we are leaving ourselves, we are abandoning ourselves. And this is like a much deeper topic. And in fact, one of my one on one clients who I've been working with this past month, one of the big things that she was able to work through was actually being able to stop over explaining and ask for what she wanted. And hello, when you understand these deeper, multifaceted and multi layers of rejection, and everybody, this is what I love about one-on-one coaching, is that everybody is so different, that when you understand your specific makeup, it's just like a thumbprint or a fingerprint. Your fingerprint is different around rejection, and you start to unravel that and look at it with support. You can really get what you want, ask for what you want in a way that connects versus separates. And so that's a really, really important skill. So all in all, if you are over explaining to avoid a fight, to avoid distance, to avoid rejection, you are probably unaware that you are doing the exact opposite in so many different ways. So if you are interested in learning more how to do that, then the Healing Girl Gang is going to be your spot. And speaking of Healing Girl Gang, one of the fun things that I do is answer a question from the Healing Girl Gang. So in the Healing Girl Gang, you have the ability to ask a question that I answer on the podcast. And Heather, why? So awesome. So glad you asked this question. And she said, I'm having a hard time determining if my partner's behavior is healthy, or I'm being led by my anxiety to think that it's not. How do I determine the difference? Okay, so I kind of like answering these questions because I just get to riff off of it and what I feel. And the first thing that I want to say is, I guess healthy is relative. Okay. And so when I say that, when I say healthy is relative, and I'm for some reason, I'm just thinking about communication. So there could be an argument that, well, you have to talk a lot, talk every day, and talk. And I guess it's really relative of what are they saying. Because is it a quantity thing? Okay, we can say a lot of stuff, but not say what's important. So when you are asking what's healthy, I feel like I'm missing a lot of context there. Like, what's the behavior? And I'm just going to use communication as the big determining factor, because you can say a lot of words and not say anything important. I mean, to me, that is just a bunch of fluff. Like, at some point, I don't want any more chips. I need a steak, right? I need steak. So that's kind of a way that I would look at that. Like, how are you determining healthy? And another kind of consideration would be, like, well, yeah, what's the context? Is it, are they, well, what's not, let's look at that. Like, what's not healthy? Are they being aggressive? Are they being closed off? And that doesn't mean that they're not going to reopen. So, for example, uh, my husband, Craig, if you don't know this, I was anxiously attached. Craig was avoidant, and I am. Now we are earned secure. And I just understand that when Craig hears something or when he has information, he processes it differently, period. And he is an earth sign. He needs to chew and needs time. And I am a fire, and I'm just like, get to the point. P.S. I just also have a strong hunch that if you are listening to this podcast, you're this deep, you probably operate the same. Okay, you probably love you so much, need to learn some patience, because it's not that he doesn't want to answer me. He literally is just in the middle of his chew. So again, it's like you got to look at all these factors and really consider your own way of operating and their way of operating. And it doesn't mean one person is right and one person's wrong. It's just different. Okay, so I feel like this is missing a little bit of context, but there's communication. There might be the distance, because that is true. If somebody is also just not willing to revisit something with you, like the shop is closed, that's a different thing. And PS, I'm not even going to say that's healthy or not. Because if you can go to Chick-fil-A and order a Whopper, that is your right in this free country for now, at least. I don't know. Anyway, who knows? But if you go to Chick-fil-A, not sponsored, and you order a Whopper, not sponsored, and they say no, you ordered, it's not that Chick-fil-A's bad because they don't have a Whopper, they don't have a burger, right? Or that you're bad for wanting a burger. It's just like, it's just not on the menu. It's not, they don't carry that. So it's also, I'm feeling a little, sniffing this out, like what's healthy and what's not. And again, it's like, you have to look at the context. And I also, one of the things that is so important is what's going on inside. What is happening for you inside? What are you looking at? What are you internalizing? And where's the introspection? And what are you looking at? So that's what I think about that. And I'm so excited to answer these questions, to see y'all inside the Healing Girl, getting to talk about communication. And if you are listening to this episode, and because a lot of you just search for podcasts, I found out, I don't know, on here, the store is coming soon. Meaning if you heard about one training and it's like, wow, that was like 6 months ago, a store is coming where you can kind of buy things a la carte. So that is coming soon. I love you. I'll see you on the internet. Mwah.